This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.
You groovy guys are really happening in far out ways.
Yeah. What's for dinner tonight? Pork chops and applesauce. Pork chops and applesauce.
Oh boy, my mind was blown when I found out. As like there was rumors that Mr. Brady could have been played by Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
That's true. That he did.
Okay.
What was that documentary? I saw it on YouTube. Yeah, they mentioned that.
A true Hollywood story.
And they tried getting Joyce Buffont to play the mom. If you know who Joyce Buffont is, she was on a lot of TV shows, but played Murray Slaughter's wife on Mary Tyler Moore. And originally to play Alice, they wanted to get Kathleen Freeman, who was you'd seen her in a lot of Jerry Lewis movies. She always played like a battle axe wife, or
And that this was the original script was the Bradley Brood, but that later became Yours, Mine, and Ours, the Lucille Ball and Henry Fonda original.
Yeah, that's what inspired it, basically.
That's what.
And they're like, this movie's making box office. Well, let's take your original idea before we rewrote it and produced it and do a sitcom version.
Scale the kids down to like 3 kids a pop.
Apparently, Cindy's list was real. I had no idea. I thought that was just an act.
They don't really address it, but she might have been divorced, not a widow, or was she a widow?
No, well, it's the question of what happened with Mike's wife. Really, it was said that she was divorced, but they didn't really go into detail for either one.
Yeah, they kind of said they still the network still thought that the divorce was such a taboo at that time, so they made them both widows.
Okay.
And what happened was that they said, okay, we can't say divorce, we'll say widowed. It's like you can say pregnancy on the air, you have to say expecting. So, I've always been kind of like thinking to myself, come on, there were other shows.
I had fun kind of prepping for this because kind of like I Love Lucy, there are millions who probably have never seen a single episode, but they know kind of what it's about because it's not just that it's been lampooned or homaged in commercials or anything. Like it's just one of those, you're like, oh yeah, like if you show a t-shirt of this to someone, they're going to be like, oh hey, a sitcom. Like even the opening titles, obviously off air, Gil shared the Robot Chicken spoof and was like, but see, that's the other thing. I've seen so many memes, so many other just photoshops people have done to the opening credits, because I think that's the other thing. Like it tells you everything you need to know, like any good theme song in those first 5 minutes. And
it's in the pop culture cloud in a way.
Even when I was a teen, this was like, even when it had been almost a decade since I'd seen an episode, like this was always in my life. Like I would always see a new sitcom, and me and my mother, who were big TV heads, were just like, yeah, I think they're going for a Brady Bunch kind of vibe there, as opposed to an I Love Lucy or Seinfeld vibe. And it was just funny how, just like we've said before, just reading the template, like what is the formula and what is it inspired or based on. And unfortunately, I'm not going to belittle anyone here because I don't want a lawsuit, but when I saw that Christopher Knight was like doing reality shows while I was watching VH1, I was like, that's quite the character. And
well, they tried to get a lot of mileage out of the show after it ended.
It's like, good grief, can you not do anything else? Well, not really.
I remember it started in 69.
Yeah,
69, bro.
The pre-cable era. I remember when ABC, I think after the 4th season, they started showing reruns in the afternoon. I think
they were doing that.
And I remember it was unnerving. All of a sudden, these kids were little kids again. We hadn't seen them that way since they first aired, and all of a sudden there they are. Oh man, I can't believe how little they look now. You know, oh, it's just like family photos. You know, wow, that was 4 years ago. Look how little you look. Yeah.
Well,
Crazy.
it's always crazy because ABC was doing that to keep interest in the show going, and not only that, but you got to realize too, 1969 is like the last year of the it's the last year of the 60s. But you got to think it's like
standards in place. There's new tone.
It's during the time of it's during the time of the Vietnam War.
You know, all the social changes going on, and this little family is a bubble, a microcosm of like, you know, what it's supposed. I always say it's kind of like, you know, Ozzy, like the other thing was like, you know, it's like, you know, there were shows like, you know, Ozzy's and Harriet, Father Knows Best, you know, Bachelor Father, you know,
they were kind of in a bubble because it's kind of this. You didn't hear about all that. You didn't hear about
a bubble is kind of the best way to put
civil rights.
It is, especially considering the movies.
Yeah.
Well, the movies that come after in the 90s, and then they even do a TV special with Gary Cole returning once again, where they're like, "Hey, an asteroid's about to hit Earth. Let's watch the world end," or something like that. Gary Cole.
Well, James is right. It was a continuation. They wanted to keep the Ozzy and Harriet, Leave It to Beaver thing going.
I read that there was a minority-filled cast. Really, there was even a minority-filled cast. It's supposed to be called Kelly's Kids. That didn't.
Yeah, that was a spin-off that they were doing with Ken Berry, because he had just finished Mayberry RFD, which was the continuation of the Andy Griffith Show. So they made,
like many shows, people would also notice some bloopers that were in post.
Yeah,
so that was going to be a Sherwood Schwartz production as well.
That was going to be Sherwood Schwartz's production, and it was kind of what they call a backdoor pilot in those days.
Was that the one? I'm sorry. I was going to say, is that the episode there's an episode I saw that I thought, I don't know, but it looked like it could have been a possibility for a pilot where these people adopt like all these different.
That's what it is. Yeah, there was one white kid, one
and then there was
kid,
the variety hour that came later, and everyone was just like, yeah, we're not enjoying our time here at all.
Well, here's how it goes. It goes the Brady Bunch.
Donnie Marie.
The cartoon. No, it goes the Brady Bunch.
No, it's the Cross. Yeah. Sorry.
The Cross did the variety hour, but the Brady Bunch, then they had the Brady Bunch Kids, right?
Or the Brady Kids.
The Brady Kids, yeah, and they were doing their own voices.
Being technical, but sorry. Go ahead.
And then they had that friggin' remember that Magic Magpie or something like that? You know.
And we previously talked about producer Schwartz on Gilligan's Island, and I can't remember where we landed on, if we liked Bunch better or Gilligan better.
Oh yeah.
And
apples and oranges, I know.
One's sort of more adults, but it wasn't really more adult. But anyway.
Yeah. But then then they did the Brady Bunch variety show. That tanked.
Yeah.
Then they did.
The Simpsons did a great parody of it.
Didn't they tour first before? Yeah. Is that what you were talking? Didn't they tour first before they variety show?
I don't know.
What they did was that in 1973, 74, they had released a record, and
also they were doing.
There was a. You know, because I realized it's like, you know, it's the age of the Partridge Family and all that stuff. So.
And there was some documentary series like Brady Home Movies and the Real Live Brady Bunch. Yeah, it's just.
I remember my dad commenting on almost every 70s show. Some character always had to sing. You know.
Yeah.
The Hardy Boys. You know, whatever it was.
I wasn't even a fan of singing back then, but I didn't mind it because I guess the actors felt so like everyday. Like
Mike, when you were 9 when the show started, right?
Yeah, it was Bobby's.
Oh man,
Bobby the youngest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would have been 9.
So did you watch the show quite a bit back then?
Yeah, I mean, we had 3 channels. You know,
I mean, I remember seeing it when it was like. I remember watching it. You know, when it was still on the air, like 2 or 3 years, because I was 2 years old when the show started.
Oh, man.
I don't know.
Damn.
Yeah, I'm the newbie.
JFK was still alive when I was 2.
I watched it until I was probably about 14. I didn't watch it near as much as, say, MASH or Cosby Show or one of those other just, you know, sitcoms that also had a moral to the story. And I think that's just it. Like, it was more escapism, just nutty. Like, it kind of...
Comfort food TV.
No, that's absolutely. It was popcorn.
Nothing wrong with that.
But at the same time, like, it just gave me that, okay, here's how I make something energetic, even if it's looser in story. You know, here's the format for a successful sitcom. You know, Sorry.
Okay, Cam, you were saying that there was a possible spinoff with the Black family.
Oh, well, like there was a African American and there was an Asian American,
Okay.
the Brady kids,
Multicultural.
and Brady World, which has been up for a while. It's like since 2005. Actually, made some interesting trivia on noticing how it's one of the few shows to be shown in some form on all three major networks at that time. I'm like, wow, yeah, that's true.
Well, when you said that, it struck me because the only Black character I ever remember on the Brady Bunch series itself was a reporter in like one episode. You know, it was rare. Maybe I'm misremembering.
No, that's a good point. I mean, and the guest characters, it didn't need to rely on those as much as others shows kind of did, where they're like, hey, here's some nutty person who enters into town. You know, it was kind of more like, I guess, kind of like Andy Griffith. Let's show everyday life. But it wasn't as, again, I'm not bashing it or anything. I'm just trying to describe for everybody. Like, I Love Lucy.
Real quick, when you said Mayberry, I remember once watching the Andy Griffith show, the black and white version, and also, hey, there's a Black character in the crowd there. I've never noticed that before. I looked up the title of the episode. It was A Black Day in Mayberry. No, I'm not kidding. That's the one. I don't think it was intentional. I think it was just coincidental. But you know, you would not see Black characters on a lot of shows. On a lot of shows, you wouldn't see that. You know, on the
they never. I mean, I think the first time you really see a Black character kind of like making his own. I'm trying to go through it in the back of my head. I mean, you know, there was Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
There was, but I think Room 222 is like the first time I can really see. You know, I Spy. Okay, I Spy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Star Trek with Uhura.
Star Trek. Yeah.
Right. No, those are good points.
Julia with the single mom, single black mom.
Yeah.
That was
Julia.
one.
But the thing was with the Brady Bunch, and I came to it when I was about 6, 7 years old. So I'm getting it on reruns.
Oh.
So I'm like watching this, and I'm like, okay, so this is what life was in the in the late 60s. Yeah, so it was like, you know, but later here's the funny thing. Here's something I was kind of said, you know, there's that thing about the Brady's was like, you got to think it's kind of overlapping with the time of All in the Family. So
no, that's a good point.
You got to think the Brady's are, you know, wholesome American, you know, and there's the yearly, you know, there's that time of disagreement that Dad has with Greg or, you know, Marsha or something like that. And then on the other channel, CBS,
you know, and
CBS,
play,
you got, you know,
we don't mean to play
Archie,
video games.
you got Archie Bunker, you know, who's basically, you know, the what's really going on in America. But I can remember just like watching episodes and going like, okay, I don't, you know, the father would tell, you know, now Greg, now Peter, now Jan, now Marsh, you know, it was always kind of like, you know, he would always just turn, he'd be like, now listen, now kids, you have to realize what's, you know, and it's like, okay, he tells the lesson in the end, and, you know.
And then the kids are always like.
He's still following a good screenwriting, and it's like, okay, let's build up to the next gag, but let's introduce who's, you know, who this involves, and so you can remember everybody's name. It's a good blend of both, while also talking plausibly, even if not exactly. But I did have fun also looking up that Schwartz was also inspired. He's like, he had heard that 20 to 30% of all families had at least one kid from a previous marriage, and he wanted to. That was kind of as realistic as he got. He wanted to commentate on this, like, okay, let's have a blended family, and because they get along so well, you do forget. Oh yeah, they're from, some of them are from an earlier marriage.
They're immediately calling their, you know, mom and dad. They're immediately calling both mom and dad, all of them.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying that was kind of an irony there, because
it was a small step in the more realistic TV, even though the Brady Bunch really isn't that realistic. Just the fact that it was.
It's introducing a concept. It's not going all the way, but at least it's giving
families from two different families.
Now,
remarking on it as opposed to ignoring it and sugarcoating it. Yeah,
I
don't think there's another show prior to that had a blended family like that.
Yeah, I can't think of any. I can think of maybe some movies had stepkids or some creepy noirs, but I can't think of any.
Oh, you had the Parent Trap movie. I guess.
For TV, was it the first time you had, because it was 69, was it the first time you had a mom and dad sleeping in the same bed?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Sweet.
They didn't have a toilet.
Yeah, they didn't have a toilet. Yeah, they point that out.
All in the
Brady
Family
Bunch
was
movie.
the first one to hear. You could hear a flush of a toilet. Yeah.
Yeah. But I can remember like thinking to myself, all right, because my house doesn't look like the Brady Bunch house, and I've seen some of those houses were in my town, like those type of houses.
Yeah.
But I can remember like,
so props to the art direction, it's a stage, but it's not an implausible looking stage,
But the thing I loved about it was, it was like those 5 years that it was on. You watch the kids grow up and become adults.
That's why they had to introduce.
It was unnerving to see the first season 5 seasons later or 4.
Yeah,
and that's why they.
Yeah, exactly.
They introduced Cousin Oliver in season 5, but he's only there for a few episodes before it's the last episode anyway.
Oliver that jumped the shark. Yeah.
Listen, I'm going to say this right now. I'm friends with Robbie Rich, the kid who played Cousin Oliver.
Whoa,
really?
I'm friends with him on Facebook.
Yeah,
and he's a good guy. He relishes it. Okay. I'm also friends.
Apparently, he does voiceover work now, from what I saw.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow,
that's cool.
And I'm also friends with Fake Jan from the Brady Bunch variety show.
Well,
Jerry,
the timing of him coming in was the series was almost done. That's
Well, they brought him in because the kids were getting older, though. But they brought him in because the kids were getting older. But it was not a good. Were they planning on going hopefully for another season?
I don't think so. I don't think so because Robert Reed and Sherwood Schwartz were always at loggerheads.
Well, he didn't show up in that last episode.
He didn't show up at the last episode because there was just a line. He says, "Oh, I can smell the strawberries," because she was cooking something, and he tells Schwartz, he's like, "Look, this is a stupid line," and he's like, "Rob, just say it," because Robert Reed was like this, classically trained actor.
Yeah.
And Sherwood Schwartz was like, "Just say the line." He's like, "No, I'm not going to say the line. This is so stupid." Why am I saying this? And he'd been bitching about the scripts for like the past maybe 2 or 3 years.
Well, he said the orange hair thing was too much.
Yeah, I remember that. And he said that, and they said that he just basically said, "All right, I'm not showing up for the show."
Oh, damn! Stick to your guns.
Excuse me. Isn't there a scene? I can envision it. I think I've seen it, where he sneaks a curse word in. I think he's
really
talking to Alice from the top of the stairs or something. The stairways
fucker come down.
No, it wasn't that.
Not
it
that
was
intense.
something fairly for that time, fairly damn or something.
I do see dams and hells get snuck into some of these
I think it's been mentioned, like those words have been used more than once, I think.
I mean, we were watching,
and that's probably all you were allowed.
Mike and I were watching
one dam, one hell.
He played it back, so I think he just swore. Yeah.
Let me look it up. Hold on, Mike.
As long as it wasn't derogatory, like your ass,
No, it was a mild swear word, but it's in there.
What in the hell?
I think it's something about she was out all night, or where have you been? I can't remember the situation. Something like that. JD is researching.
Right. I did find something. Hold on.
Yeah.
Line in the Sergeant Emma episode.
That sounds right. That sounds right. Wasn't she?
It's just an urban legend that he said Alice is 6 o'clock in the blanking morning.
Yeah.
It's
not like he said effing morning or something.
Yeah. Supposedly he could have said freaking morning or something like that. I don't know.
It snuck through. Yeah.
Maybe he said something and they bleeped it out or something.
Yeah. I think it was so subtle it got through. I do remember seeing Goodwill Hunting on ABC TV, and a couple of F-bombs snuck in, but they're so quiet, it was quick,
That's the other funny thing too, when you see even songs being played in the background, and if you don't hear it in the background, but if you turn it up or remaster the sound, you're going to hear something inappropriate. I've seen that with even certain 80s and 90s shows where there's a bit of cleavage to where they'll even censor it a bit. And it's like, a nipple got through. Sorry.
McCartney drops an F-bomb on Hey Jude. It's buried in the mix, but you can.
Yeah, you can hear it. Where does he say it? He says, fucking hell or something like that.
Well, he messed up a take, but they kept going. It wasn't bad enough that they just left it in.
That's kind of what I'm reading a lot of, which I never realized, but it also wasn't uncommon. We were still growing as filmmakers, but yeah, there would be a lot of bloopers or mispronunciations, but they, like any trained actors, they just kept going, and so did the filmmakers. They're like, "That's the take for the day. We're wrapped."
I will say this.
One more I got to mention. There's a Beach Boys song on the fade. You can hear a mattress spring and a girl moaning.
Oh my God! What song?
It's I can't remember. It's
it one of the Manson girls they were engaged to?
Maybe. It's gosh, I is it on Smiley's? I think I got on one of the Beach Boys. I was gonna say
over 1,200 kids auditioned. 464 were personally interviewed.
So, sorry, go ahead, Cam. Sorry.
1,200 kids auditioned. 464 were interviewed. Can you imagine back in that day, like as a Hollywood agent and a producer having to make all this work?
That was a lot of work.
There's probably millions now because they got technology and they can waste everybody's time now. They don't care, but it's just like, man, I can't even imagine in that day, pre, phones what they are now.
Dana Gould talked about auditioning kids for his Stand Against Evil show, and you got to, basically go home and tell your mom I just broke your heart, that kind of thing. It's tough. It's tough to audition children if you think about it, because if I'm going to be on TV, they all think that, and then
they all do, even if you don't.
It's a reality check for them.
They think it. Yeah. Coming soon, Dana Gould episode. Promise.
The thing that gets me the most is like when they brought the Brady's back in the 80s. Now this isn't not the Brady's TV show. They did the Brady girls are getting married.
Yep.
And then they did the Brady Brides.
I never saw it. I might have seen part of the Christmas special. But
all I'm gonna say to you is that forget that happened, because it was like, oh wait, yeah, we can see the Brady Bunch. They're all growing up, and Marcia and Jan are gonna get married, and I'm like,
so much like
it was weird because they tried to make it adult, but it seemed still kind of too saccharine for the time.
They couldn't buck the formula. What's the one where Mike's trapped? The dad's trapped in a burning house or something, or they have to rescue him from a house. I think that was one.
I'm surprised it didn't burn down more often.
Yeah.
Well, there was one. There's an that was the Brady's. I think they were in a building.
Yep.
And it was Christmas Eve, and the mom and started singing Silent Night or something like that, and everybody starts singing, like, Mike gets out miraculously, little do we know that, little do we know, the building was unsafe, and what happened was that they made it like kind of like 30 something for the Brady's, because remember Bobby gets in a car accident and he's like paralyzed temporarily, and Marcia's an alcoholic.
If only it was that way in real life.
and those problems were resolved in like one episode.
Right. In real life, you'd be missing 2 months worth of work while you're Bones Hill.
I'm pretty sure they brought Leave It to Beaver back years later, and Wally.
I think they did.
Wally had been divorced.
I remember. I have a vague memory of that, but I didn't really watch a lot of it.
Still the beaver. Still the beaver. Still the beaver.
Still the beaver. He had to have the disclaimer. I'm still.
And they brought. I remember that was like a whole wave of things, because they brought back Leave It to Beaver. I think they did.
In the 80s, they brought back Mission Impossible.
Impossible. They brought back. Well, they tried doing the Monkeys, called the New Monkeys.
Oh boy, yeah.
Didn't MTV come up with that?
No, that was.
I think there was a bunch of comedians, but
that was Bert Schneider and Bob. No, that was not. It wasn't Schneider and Rafelson. Who the hell was it?
That guy.
It was the other guy, Steve Blauer, and they were on the Today Show.
Oh,
and Jane Paul was asking, what do you think about the New Monkeys? He says, well, we can't say what we think about them, but we know what we're saying. And the person who's doing it, you just don't know what the hell you're doing, do you? It's a great thing to watch, because they're just acting so goofy on it. But
MTV was responsible for the Monkeys revival, because when they started running those, I remember mid 80s, late 80s,
It was 1987, because I remember they just did. No, was it 80? No, it was 86, because it was going to be the 20th anniversary, and they had.
Right. Yep.
They had that February. They ran Pleasant Valley Sunday, which was all the episodes, like up and uncut.
It was like early binge watching. Yeah.
Binge watching's the best way to do it. They just did marathons, so I think that's why I was always in the mode when there were movies or shows they announced that you could binge, and I was doing it before streaming. I just always loved sneaking in,
but
4 episodes on a 2-hour, TV.
But when they did the Brady's, they brought that back. But then you realize that when that was going on, they it was great, it's gonna be funny, and then all of a sudden it's just like, boy, And little did we know at the time that Robert Reed was sick. We didn't know he was sick.
Yeah. He died early 90s, right?
91, 92.
And no one knew until later that he was gay. And I'm like, wow.
Well, it was a well-kept secret.
Right.
And it's like he was 2020 special in 2000 aired. I saw that.
It would have been, yeah.
Florence Henderson knew.
Yep.
From the way he kissed her on the show. And she said that, she knew he was. But when they were doing the Brady's, he was taking these large amounts of pills. And she was saying, oh, it's probably on vitamins or something like that.
I saw that one of the other Brady kids liked to experiment with something, and he claimed it wasn't weed, but it was pretty apparent that he was doing something that was making him late to set every day.
Yeah, I think
I can't remember if they replaced him like one of the other girls or not.
Wait, what?
Didn't they replace some of the other actors?
Only during the variety show stuff.
Oh, okay.
Or not the variety show, but was it the live show?
So never during the actual show. Okay, gotcha.
Well, no, what they did was when they did the Brady Bunch hour, the Eve Plum didn't want to do it, so they brought in Jerry Reshi, who's known as now as Fake Jan. I'm friends with her on Facebook too, and the funny thing was, it's like, wait, hold on. And when they did The Simpsons, she's the voice of Fake Lisa.
Yeah. Also, the Gilligan's Island, Sherwood Schwartz revivals, they had a different ginger too. Different album. Same thing.
How about that?
Why can't we all just get along?
So Florence Henderson lived to be 82.
Yeah.
So how many of you guys, we were making jokes about other people who might be Brady's, like Alan Brady.
I used to love her on Hollywood Squares. She was a little racier on that.
Well, oh, really? Okay.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys see her Who's Line episode?
No.
It was great.
See what now?
She was on Who's Line. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding. I saw it actually recently, and I was good.
Are you talking Drew Carey or later?
Yeah, Drew Carey in 2002, and Colin even kisses her in one skit, and she even jokes that Wayne Brady's her lost Brady son. It was like,
oh my God,
you go, Florence. So that would be
all I'm gonna say is when you become a teenager and you're watching the Brady Bunch, and you see Mrs. Brady, and you're like,
oh shit,
wow,
makeup department loved her. That is for sure.
Oh no, dude, she had. I remember me and my friends were like sitting there one day. We're like, okay, if you had any woman on television to like fool around with, who would it be? We're like, my friends. I go, Carol Brady. They're like, what? I said, dude, you ever see the Hawaii episode when she's got the bikini on? Holy shit!
Oh hell, I would have said Daisy Duke myself, but
there you go. If you can be hot for teacher, we can be hot for.
If memory serves, there was a Chicago theater group that would stage a Brady episode word for word.
Oh my word!
It was,
they did.
I think it was Chicago, or was it? I think it was. It wasn't.
It was the Groundlings. The Groundlings did.
The Groundlings did it. Wow.
And Melanie Hustle.
Would they? I mean, if it's 25 minutes, would they do 3 episodes a show? Or
yeah. And I remember the girl who played Jan in the Brady Bunch movie, I think, was part of that group. But if you ever see the old Saturday Night Live, remember they had a woman on there, Melanie Hustle. She was she wasn't used. She was used a lot in some sketches, but
she's the one
thing was imitating Jan Brady.
Okay.
So she would have the glasses on and like the little ringlet pigtail, and then my sister Marsha. She said, and like,
Marsha. She's the one that started the Marsha.
yeah.
That the movie kind of picked up on.
Oh, and don't forget the Super Bowl ads.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah, Steve Buscemi did one, and he's going up to someone who's like, Marsha.
Oh, yes, right. Yeah.
It was like for a Butterfinger ad or something like that. And
Snickers.
That's what it was. Yes. And it's just so funny. Again, everybody knows what they're saying. Even if you've only seen the SNL, it's like you know it. And
it's in our bloodstream. Yeah.
It's in our bloodstream. It's a virus. It's our DNA.
No, we used to there was this girl who came into class one day. She's like, oh, I got a boyfriend. He's so great. And and she's a real stuck up girl. And I just said out loud, what's his name? George Glass. And she just gave me this look of like, shut up. What do you?
Probably didn't even know what you were talking about.
Oh, everybody, kids were giggling when I said it, but she's looking at me like, what the hell? She probably didn't know what I was talking about.
What did you just say?
What did you just say about my boyfriend? All I remember his name was Gary, and he was like 5 years older than she was, and I was just like thinking to myself,
Wow.
I was actually surprised the episode where Marsha gets her nose smashed with a football. And she has the double dates, the two dates at the same time. Well, actually, I can't remember how it went in the movie, but I was watching the original episode, and I was actually surprised to see that her jock boyfriend was the guy who played Spider-Man in '79.
What's his name?
Nick Hammond? Yeah,
Nicholas Hammond. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Well, here's another one. The one where she's working in the ice cream parlor, right?
I didn't see that one recently, but
she's working in the ice cream parlor. And she squirts the kid with whipped cream. That's Michael Gray, who played Billy Batson in Shazam.
Oh God!
All these
they had a lot
actors.
of guest stars on that show.
Yeah. Well, Davy Jones. I remember Davy Jones specifically, and he actually shows up in the movie too.
I remember Davy Jones. I remember Joe Namath.
Yep.
I remember
Vincent Price.
Vincent Price
that's one of the Hawaiian episodes.
That's wild that Davy from
I'm gonna eat my beans. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love Jim Backus being in it. Which is kind of a callback to Gilligan's Island. Deacon, keep thinking Deacon Jones was in it. Jones was in one episode. James McDivitt, the astronaut, because remember, I think Bobby or Peter sees aliens land in the backyard.
That's right.
And supposedly James McDivitt, when he was on Apollo 10 or Apollo 9 or Apollo 16, he thought he saw a UFO go off. Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, it's yeah. He thought he saw a UFO go flying by. They had really good, and they had some really good supporting cast too. Because I can remember Dennis's dad from Dennis and the Menace played one of the doctors. Played a doctor who visits the house.
Richard Pryor shows up on A Partridge Family. I know that.
Yeah, Richard Pryor and Louis Gossett Jr.
Damn.
Well, Richard Pryor was supposed to be the hipper family, but I think that's also why the Brady started singing.
Yeah.
Somebody had to.
Because, the Partridge Family is getting...
The Partridge Family, sure.
Yeah.
No, I think on the Brady cartoon, did they sing too? I think they did.
Yeah, they did. They that was the thing that drew. I can if you guys want to.
They didn't go to outer space or anything though, like Gilligan.
No, I don't think they did. That was Partridge Family 220.
Oh, that's right.
2200 AD. Yeah.
I'm thinking of Far Out Space Nuts when they thought Bob Denver thought the button said lunch.
Lunch.
Yeah, that was the whole premise of the show.
I'll give you a great thing to watch. It's on YouTube. Watch Sid and Marty Krofft live at the Hollywood Bowl. Okay?
Oh, that'd be fun.
Oh,
all right. It's Johnny Whitaker singing Friends and telling the world's worst joke ever. He's like, you watch it, you're like, kid, you're bombing up. They should have had a big giant cane come off and like yank him off after he was done. Then they had Jack Wilde come out, and he did, like, it's later in the show, he does Consider Yourself One of the Family. Okay. And then between that, it's the Brady kids coming out, and they're doing Proud Mary.
Of course.
Right. Yeah. Which is like, like
every wedding for decades had that song. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh gosh. Yeah. And it's like, and all of a sudden, like, Mike Lookingland comes out and does this really funky version of Whole Lot of Shaking Going On. So here's this like 12-year-old kid singing Whole Lot of Shaking Going On. And I'm just like, it's like you're covering your eyes and you're
not sure how to feel.
Yeah. Oh god!
Oh, that reminds me. Some of the side projects they did, like you showed that that record that Eve Plum put out for the Cookie Fortune, Mike, and I was just like listening to that, going,
"Oh yeah."
I was rolling my eyes so bad at that.
I just joined records that didn't make the top 40 group, and that's where I found that records.
What was it called?
It was
the Fortune Cookie song.
Yeah.
Eve Plum.
I can't believe you found
I didn't get through more than the first minute, so.
Well, I listened to the whole thing with my wife, and my wife just looked at me with an evil eye.
Like, what did you bring into this house?
Was it that bad?
Like I said, drop it in the bottom of the river. Her dad was a producer, some music mogul. Eve Plum's, little nepotism there, yeah. I mean, she didn't go anywhere after that, obviously, musically, but
the producer guy was named Plum too, so yeah.
Yeah, I think in the YouTube notes it mentions her father was either a record producer. I think he was a record producer or something like that.
Have you guys ever seen I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker?
Yes.
It's been a long time. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Watch the scene where he talks to Clarence Williams III. And guess who comes out? Eve Plum. So when she comes out, you hear da 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 da. Here's the story of a minute, and she comes out. How's my Nubian warrior doing? It was just so funny to see that. And she's got like the curl, like the cornrowed hair and everything like that. And you're just, she's wearing the dashiki, and the kids kind of like, Abraham Lincoln was a no good honky.
Damn.
But
I love the Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch movies they did years later, and Gary Cole.
I thought
Gary Cole was incredible. He had that down.
You also have Betty Thomas to thank for directing the first one.
Okay.
Richard Belzer had a cameo as the cop at the end, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant.
I'm sorry, Greg and Marcia kiss in that too, make out in that one in the movie.
Yeah, that's the second one, I think. That's the second one.
Kind of okay because they weren't really blood, I don't know.
But they were still brother and sister.
That's true. What are the legalities of that? I don't know how that works.
But no, I thought it was brilliant.
That's a weird rabbit hole.
I thought they were brilliant with putting like these characters who were stuck in the 70s.
Yeah.
In present day.
Yeah.
And so you still got that bubble that you talk about. Yeah. You got that bubble that you talked about from the series. And you take that bubble and you just move it to 20 years later in the 90s.
Well, hell, they were antiquated in the 70s. They were not of that time, really. They were too perfect or something.
Yeah, I wouldn't know if adults really were identified with it, but kids certainly did.
Yeah,
at that time.
Oh no, it was a very popular show. I mean, when I worked on a school paper I put together for 2 issues, and one of the first things I did was a little thing about the Brady Bunch. I think
because that's one thing I'm remembering.
Cartoons about it or something. Yeah,
that's one thing I'm remembering. I really didn't start watching it until I was about 5 or 6, but I didn't watch it too much. Like you were 9 when it started. When I was 9, I think I'd lost interest in it at that point.
Yeah. The youngest boy makes me laugh because I was exactly his age when it aired. So even watching as an adult, I think he's a funny character. I can relate.
Bobby is like the runt of the litter, but as he gets older, he starts to begin to find his own voice. It's always like, okay, Greg's always trying to be cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Bravo.
Yeah,
Johnny Bravo. Yeah.
Johnny Bravo.
That name started there.
Yeah.
There's Greg is, Bobby, Peter is is like he's trying to be like Greg, but he's like he's a little more geekier, you know. And Bobby's like, look, I'm the youngest, but I'm gonna, I've got my sister. My sister's like my best friend, and I'll stick up for her no matter what, you know. And he doesn't, so it's like, and then you got Marcia, Jan, and Cindy, and Marcia's like, beautiful, perfect. Jan's always living in her shadow, but the thing is, Jan always has her own voice, she'll start becoming more vocalist. And then Cindy's always like, kind of like, I don't know. I always see Cindy's like, the one that kind of like, kind of, goes nowhere, kind of like just like disappears and she comes back, it's like she was in another dimension or something like that. But
who was it? Barry Williams played the oldest.
Yeah.
Barry Williams played Greg.
There's a YouTube. Supposedly there was one scene that made the cut where he's stoned on marijuana.
Oh, wow.
And
Do you know what episode that was?
I've seen it on YouTube. It's in the front yard. I think he's shooting hoops or something, but you could see it in his eyes that he was buzzing.
Yeah. I've heard about that. Yeah. I gotta find that.
He admitted it later in a biography, I think, that he was
growing up Brady. Yeah.
Yeah, growing up. Yeah.
He said that Barry Knight and Eve Plum went out on a date one time.
Was it Eve Plum or I thought it was?
He went out with the mom.
No. This is another story. He went out with he did go out with Florence Henderson, and there was but Eve Plum and Barry Knight one night. Barry Knight, Eve Plum and Chris Knight went out on a date one night, and they started making out, and the cops came and like knocked on the window, and they were like, they got freaked out and everything like that.
Did it make obviously we know about it, yeah.
But there's stories he told about them like getting drunk on a plane one time, and like Chris was it Mike Lookinland and Susan Olsen were like, going like, I love you too, like that. They were just doing that shit. Susan Olsen is really not exactly the world's most liberal person in the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's I'm friends with her on Facebook.
Man.
Yeah. Her and Robbie Rist have gotten to some good arguments, and I kind of take Robbie's side on shit like that,
Oh, I remember reading some article about the Brady Bunch. It might have been People Magazine or something. Maybe it was something like that. And I just remember Eve Plum's mom in real life caught her reading The Exorcist.
Yeah.
With a flashlight under the covers. I don't know what it.
Yeah.
It might have been TV Guide or something, but that it's funny how they can get the little gossip. It's kind of fun reading that kind of. It's just like they always say, they're just like us,
Well, I can remember, her doing the Brady's, and that went off the air, and then they had a TV show on Saturday mornings called Super Fudge. On Saturday morning, and she played the mom.
Careful with that
Super
title.
Fudge, yeah.
What the fudge?
Yeah. Oh, fudge.
Oh, what the fudge, man.
I didn't say fudge. I said it. The word. The queen mother of all words.
Fudge you. Coming to TBS. Fudge you.
Oh, it was kind of cool with the movie, like Marcia's being the popular one and, back in the day. And this, even though she's out of time, she seems to be the one all the boys are she's turning the heads of all the boys.
It was a double success from that point too. Like a lot of the actors in those movies went on to do a lot of big other TV stuff. So that was a good career boost for them for doing an impression of another, other TV stars,
But it seemed to me like the movie's kind of centered a lot around Jan.
Yeah.
Because she's so put upon
the sibling rivalry thing. I do remember Marcia. Who played Marcia? I should know these names.
She was married to
Christine Taylor.
Christine.
No, that's right.
I'm talking about the original Marcia in the series.
Maureen McCormick.
I do remember her doing TV ads for Barbie or something.
I think she did some other B movies. Didn't she do a Roger Corman movie?
The same time as the Brady Bunch, though. Yeah.
She was in I remember she was in The Idolmaker.
Oh, okay. I can see her in that. Sure.
where she played a reporter or something like that who sleeps with the guy who's
wow, there's a deep cut. Wow.
But I can remember like Eve Plum doing some, kind of like, Diary of a Hitchhiker or something like that. And Susan Olsen was like working actually as a film crew. Now there was a big rumor going around that she was in a pornographic movie. But what happened was that the girl who played her, the girl who looked like her, was a girl named Dorothy LeMay. And if you look at Dorothy LeMay, she looks like Susan Olsen. I'm not shitting you. You can look at a picture of Dorothy LeMay with her clothes on and Susan Olsen, and they look the same almost. So, but what happened was that Susan Olsen was like, yeah, I did some movies, I did production work on them, but I was never in one. And I'm kind of like going, yeah, I kind of agree with you on that because it's two different, it's two different things. It's like I was just going.
That's why you get away with it. You're the crew. You're not the star of said movie. So
yeah, but
I think Eve Plum played in a TV movie where she played a teenage hooker or something at one.
Yeah, I think Eve Plum. I think of them all had more acting and stuff after the movie after the show
versus
than
the other guys, which did reality shows or just played themselves.
He's trying to compete with Marshall yet. Yeah.
Marshall.
But all I remember is I just remember like Barry Williams not really. Barry Williams did a lot of like stage stuff. I don't remember. I know I met Mike Lookinland.
Yeah, that's cool.
He was kind of like he's a deadhead. He followed the Grateful Dead. Wow. And I was, I'm a deadhead too. So it was like, I was like, hey man, he saw the dead. So you can imagine like you're some guy like watching the Grateful Dead. You look over and there's Pete, there's Bobby Brady, and you're like, hey man, you gonna get in trouble if you smoke a J with me? Is the old man gonna take you aside and give you a lecture about drugs?
He has a hell of a hair. I gotta say,
which one's Lookinland? Is he the youngest?
Yeah, he was the youngest. Yeah.
Okay.
Man, that's cool that you got to meet him. Man.
I was at a convention and they had it was Susan Olsen, Mike Lookinland, Jerry Rush,
mid 2000s.
It had to be it had to be like maybe 2014, 2013.
Jeez.
Yeah, and I can remember I was walking around with my Grateful Dead shirt on, and Lookinland stopped. He's like, "Hey man, I like that shirt." I'm like, "Yeah, man, thanks." And he's like, "Yeah, did you ever see him?" I said, "Well, I went to the Further festivals a couple times. I told him I wanted to get tickets before Garcia died. Yeah, I was gonna get I'm gonna go see the Dead at Radio City Music Hall. I'll just save up and get some tickets. It'll be cool. And then they'll send August 9th. I hear Jerry Garcia was found dead this morning. I'm like, motherfucker!
But I worked with a deadhead at work when that happened. I remember that. Yeah, Scott.
Missed opportunity.
I gotta check with my wife on something on Peter Brady. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Here you go, guys. Prepare for the trivia pop quiz.
Yeah. Christopher Knight was married to that one woman, Ari.
Yeah, other than that VH1 reality show, I don't know if he did anything else other than.
And I think they got divorced maybe 2 years after they got married.
That sounds about right.
And he was really into computers and shit. From what I understand.
Yeah, he's a big tech guru. I think
that's the one in the middle, right? Because I saw.
Yeah. But I do remember. I kind of remember the Brady Bunch movie, the cameos that they had. And my favorite one was she gets Jan's running away from home, and she gets picked up by a trucker, and the trucker is Ann B. Davis,
right from the movie. Yep.
Wow.
And then they go see their grandma. And the grandma is Morris Henderson, but they had a couple of really, good cameos in those movies, that I liked,
The second one they had Barbara Eden in the and Higgins from Magnum PI talking about his son Gilligan that was lost at sea.
Yes, my son Gilligan was lost at sea. Anyway, my ears forget Gilligan lost at sea. But
oh man, that's great. connects
the thing that was so great about
that.
The great thing about those first two movies was the first one was like it was funny. You know, it was funny because it was like every cliche you knew about the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, they threw it all in. They incorporated like episodes and kind of blended it all into the movie.
Yeah.
Much like Roseanne and Cosby Show were talking about pregnancy and don't do drugs. It was interesting how this show is a little more promiscuous, but still saying, "Hey, get back in time for dinner and don't be, out past 8."
Well, and then they're playing. The family's playing. They're oblivious to the world around them.
Yeah.
That one girl, Marcia has a sleepover, and it's the woman who plays Ted's mom on the TV show.
Oh, wow.
Not Ted, but on the TV show Ted, she plays the mom.
Oh God! I knew why she looked so familiar. Yeah,
way to go!
And put your hand on my leg.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was my leg.
I'm gonna have to check that out once I get Peacock again. I can't.
Oh God, I love watching that movie and the way they had the talent contests. What did the judges think? It pans over to the judges and it's the monkeys. and then they're going to they park for the talent show and a bus goes by and it's the Partridge Family bus.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, my wife was working for the press in town here years ago, and Peter Brady shows up one day. I think he was promoting some charity or something. They were doing an article about it.
Yeah.
I just remember one of her coworkers, "Can I touch you?" I couldn't believe it was there, So that's really kind of cool.
You exist.
All of a sudden you look up and there's Peter Brady walking around the newsroom. That's kind of cool. She met Ernie Harwell, the TV. She wrote. I'm proud to say she wrote Ernie Harwell's obituary for the paper.
Ernie, who's Ernie Harwell?
Harwell was the Detroit Tigers announcer for decades.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
On the radio.
Yeah.
He's also on the radio, the famous Shot Heard Around the World.
That's him.
He worked for no, not on the TV footage. He was on the radio when that happened, though. He was the radio coverage, which here. But
I remember when he got
to meet him once. He was promoting walking, and I got to walk with him for a minute and a half. I felt like I knew him for 20 years. He's a really
embedded his persona in
and the Tigers.
Really cool guy.
The Tigers did the stupidest thing, letting him go. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, they brought him back.
Yeah, they brought him back. I remember when they let him go.
Bring it back, y'all. Bring it back.
I talked to him about what he thought the best team he's ever seen. He thought it was the '61 Yankees.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the movie. Remember, like the youngest didn't have a whole lot to do in the movies. The two younger characters, but I remember the one being the hall monitor, and he has the teacher spread eagle against the bus. Remember that?
Wow.
Yeah.
You need to spread your legs further apart, whatever the teacher's name was, and all this stuff comes falling out from underneath her dress.
Wait, was that in the movie?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say that.
And then there was the part where you mustn't tattle Cindy.
Yep.
So then what happens? She starts talking. All of a sudden, these reporters come out of nowhere.
Well, yeah, she's supposed to not tattle, but she sure tells everybody everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Did you guys bring up the Burt Mustin episode, the Billy the Kid one?
Yeah, I remember that one.
Did you? Yeah, that was also there. We were watching. What the heck's going on here? The Brady Bunch is in the Twilight Zone. And all of a sudden, it was real serious. And Gilligan's Island did one of those too. They couldn't
help it, man. They had to have some freak out episode.
Gilligan had the Most Dangerous Game episode too, where the hunter was. Yeah,
somebody had to hunt him. Yeah,
I remember the next day at school. Boy, Gilligan's Island was really kind of scary yesterday. What happened? Yeah. But yeah, somehow I used to. The Brady's father would always figure out. You go to hell and back to resolve these situations.
He was a smart guy, but we never saw how he figured it out. We just had to put it together.
How did he find this guy that his dad? He knew somebody that built it.
Now you make me want them to reboot it, but he's a private eye. No one gets past me. No one.
Well, and that was another thing in the movie. Like you were saying, Gary Cole. He was brilliant as Mike Brady. And
he had him down.
He'd always give his advice.
He's still great. He's always great.
I got
Every
one
freaking Birdman. And he's a smart actor. Like, so I can only imagine Betty Thomas reuses him later when she does a rendition of I Spy with Eddie Murphy as the bad guy. But like, I fun fact about him, like he's just always, when he's doing any of his voiceovers, he's always warming up and giving them different voices to use. Originally, his villain, the evil boss in Office Space, originally they filmed him reacting to his car being vandalized at the end, and he protested that. He's like, no, I don't want any of the audience guys feeling sorry for my bastard of a character. No. And so he was so relieved on opening day when they had cut the scene, thanks to his protest.
Well, the first show he was on a TV show. I don't remember.
Nightcaller.
Midnight
Caller.
Yeah.
And then he was also in a Babylon. He also did a Babylon 5 spinoff.
Yes, he did. Crusade. One of my favorite captains. Yep, Gideon. Yep.
But the thing I loved about him was he got the cadence down of Robert Reed. And if you see one part, he's talking to her, and you see Shelley Duvall's reaction, and she's going, and she's like looking like, what the hell are you saying?
And I'm sure, like many of these theater-trained actors, they're doing voice exercises so they know, hey, I can change the tone just like that based on how you want it, and
he nailed the tone.
He was giving like advice to the kids that sounded like it was scripted by Ed Wood.
Yeah,
because I mean, it's like
but
Jan
he pulled it off. It was he was great at it.
I think that's why he gets some of those other comedy roles later. He just knows how to just say the most absurd stuff with a straight face.
Well, they did an episode of Family Guy where he's like Greg has cigarettes. Greg, you have to do. You have to. And then it says, well, what about you? And for you telling, you have to spend 5 hours in the snake pit. It was just like, holy shit.
Just of all the things you have to tell me I have to do what? What? Good stuff. Man,
but I mean, I don't think you'll ever see a movie like a TV show like the Brady Bunch. I think the closest you got was Step by Step.
Interesting,
which was
it was the guy from Dallas
Summers and Patrick Duffy.
Yep.
And I think that's something we all kind of like. We're like, it's like the Brady Bunch, except everybody looks modern.
Is that the one that had the girl with that was from My Two Dads?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh wow, hey.
Who's
Greg
now
Evigan
a lawyer?
Who were the two dads in My Two Dads? Greg Evigan and
Paul Reiser.
Paul Reiser.
I was gonna say, from Diner. All kind and Mad About You.
No, you guys are bringing up some good points. It's like because there's all other sitcoms that kind of have their own formula. You get Family Ties and what have you. But it's like that was similar in that again it was a blended family.
My favorite is Married with Children.
Oh yeah,
there you go.
Nothing will ever top that show. I'm sorry, but the more I watch that show, the more I kind of look and go, that was my family.
I still, I talk about Cousin Oliver.
I was raised on Cosby's show. I guess that.
And then I think about the episode of Married with Children where they introduce a kid into Married with Children, and then he just disappears. And then one time in an episode of Married with Children, you're seeing a milk carton with his face on it.
Yeah,
it was his kid.
Roseanne did something with the two actresses played her daughter too. Late.
Yeah.
Well, one went off to college, and then Sarah Chalke came in, I think.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And then they did one time at the end of the Roseanne show, they did it where they did the Patty, like a takeoff on the Patty Duke show, and it was Sarah Chalke and the other girl, and they were doing like the whole Patty Duke thing, and then it cuts over and there's William Shallert standing next to John Goodman, smiling, like going, "Hey, look what we got here," But there was one where they kind of made fun of it one time, and this is, "Hey, Becky, you look really different."
Yeah.
And then WandaVision started out like the Dick Van Dyke Show in black and white.
Well,
that's true.
There was an episode of what was it? It was Roseanne, and then it became whatever the family name was, which I can't.
Oh, the Connors.
The Connors.
Yeah.
And Sarah Chalke shows up, and I think it was about trying to, Sarah Chalke's in the episode, but she's not playing Becky. She's playing a different character, and she's trying to
They do that in Community too. They have Paquette Brewster play a tech gal, and then the following season, they're like, "Hey, you look like the gal in IT." And she joins the cast.
They did that with Fresh Prince of Bel Air.
That was my show too. I love that.
Yeah,
show.
remember when the original Aunt Viv left?
Yeah,
she got fired.
She got fired. Will
and
Smith
they brought in the other one. They're like, "Hey, Aunt Viv, you look kind of different."
Yeah,
and it was like,
you get some work done, girl. Yeah,
that was the joke,
Yeah,
but I love the original Aunt Viv because she knew how to freaking talk back to somebody. Yeah, they brought in Daphne Maxwell Reid to play the second Aunt Viv. And
what did you get? Can you see the nanny existing in the same universe? Seems like she had that same kind of motherly figure.
With the nanny in the Brady universe?
Yeah,
lived a couple blocks over, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of thing. I don't know.
Just that butler. It seemed like.
Yeah, that.
Do you remember this Brady episode? I'm burning up. I'm burning up. And then Alice takes a baseball bat to the bust of Mr. Brady. That remember that one?
No.
Wow, I lost you.
I'm sure I've seen it. I just don't remember.
The kids were doing a ghost, trying to scare somebody with a ghost, and Alice comes in, thinks it's the real. She hits something with a baseball bat, and it turns out to be Mrs. Brady made a bust for his birthday. Mr. Brady. And they glued it back together. I'm not making this up. That's not a.
No, that's great. See, we've all put each other on the spider today, and we've all done a deep cut on an episode somehow that escaped us all. So I think this is more fun. But I watched
a lot of those episodes. Yeah,
but I was looking forward to this because it didn't require much research, but it also was going to be more of the nostalgia mixed with a proper review, mixed in with, hey, remember when this, you first got addicted to this? Because that's the other thing too. I kind of miss when TV was a little more accessible versus, oh, now you gotta watch it, you gotta subscribe to this, and it's just coworkers aren't as good at selling you on something anymore either, and trailers are kind of forced. This was back
so
when
much.
You only had free channels.
My sister-in-law saying there's just so much TV.
There's too much. There's stuff that people are like, you should check out, and I'm like, you haven't sold me, so duly noted.
I try watching
Lilyhammer after all these years.
I'm gonna get there. See, that's the other thing too.
It's terrific, by the way. It's really good.
I have no doubt it's Van Zandt, but it's one of those you gotta also sell people. People gotta like the premise before they waste time with anything. And it was one of those. This is back when we were kind of more laid back, and we liked how there was options for sitcoms instead of let's just have a 4-camera laugh track, and that's all you get. I wouldn't say it was necessarily as experimental, but it's pretty hard. It was a pretty hard premise to have to goof up. People that, from all this research we've done tonight, it's pretty clear that everybody trusted each other. The producer pitched it really well by just flat out he's like, hey, you liked my original script? What you guys did with it worked, so let me do my thing. It will still work, and it did. It worked, but it was also one of those, with all the stuff like you guys what we're saying, even though there was some behind the scenes issues, they were able to get past it, as opposed to other sets where it's very clear, especially later on. It's like, oh, these two stars can't stand to be in the same room, or we had to write them out because they're late to set due to drugs.
I gotta say this. I've been watching a lot of the later episodes of Cheers after Shelley Long left,
leaves,
and they brought Kirstie Alley in, and I gotta say the show, it's what I call the McGinley effect. Listen, hear me out. Remember, Ted McGinley was the guy. If they brought him in, he was going to kill a show.
Yeah, he was the show killer. Yeah,
he was the show killer, and then they brought him in with
he
children.
Didn't kill Psych, so that's good.
There's a female who's an actress too. The same thing, but go ahead. Paula Marshall. Go ahead.
Marshall.
So what happened was that when they brought him into Married with Children, it got better because now here was a guy who wasn't, Steve was more like, laid back. Jefferson was more of an asshole.
Con artist. He was a con artist.
Yeah. So when they brought when they brought Kirstie Alley in, the whole thing of, her having a relationship with Sam, okay, that went out the window, and now it was, he was just a person who was caught up in this whole madness of what that place was.
Well, Kirstie Alley's character was just so dysfunctional, and she never got a break. It seemed like.
No, I love that's what I loved about her character. She was just so funny to watch.
She was Jan for Cheers.
Yeah, that's a good point. So good news.
I've read about Paula Marshall being the show killer, but the only time I've seen her is she plays Iris West in the first episode of The Flash, 1990.
She really is a good actress.
She never appeared again, and she's also in the Seinfeld episode where she thinks George and Jerry are gay.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
But they obviously The Flash lasted one season, but I'd read that if she was kind of like the McGinley, though. She'd show up on a show and the show.
She, Heather Locklear, Blair Underwood, Jimmy Smits, unfortunately, are all kind of on that boat, which is ridiculous. And going back to Forget Brewster, she said in interviews that producers often do that just because they can't own up to their failure, that they had a crappy script to work with or something, and they just want to throw the main face under the bus. Now, James, you'll be happy to know.
Had a really long career on Miami Vice.
Yes, he did. It's the Miami Vice effect. But
sorry,
no, it's fine. So James, you'll be happy to know that Ted McGinley isn't killing Shrinking.
No, I heard he's.
I was wondering what he was in.
He is funny. He is. Dipshit. He's a well-meaning dipshit, but he is a dipshit.
Yeah. You want to take out the garbage with me? Wait, you want to do what? You want to take out the garbage with me? So you want me to walk down the driveway with you to take out the garbage? Yeah, sure. And then he's talking to the woman next to her. Hi, Barbara. How's everything going? Bill, yeah, we don't like Barbara. Oh, okay. Suck a bowl of dicks, Barbara. And you're watching this, you're like, I had to watch that whole preview. I'm like, wait, hold on. I had to play it back. I'm like, fucking McGinley's a fucking pimp in this show, man.
And that's just it. He's so well meaning, and yet he's even told
it's like Mr. Brady cursing at Alice.
It's a bit of that. He's a mix of the Fathers Are Sorry lot mixed in with you just can't catch a break, dude. What did you even think before you say anything? I know you mean well, but God, man.
What's his character in Shrinking? He's
the one of the next door neighbors.
Is that one with Harrison Ford that I haven't watched yet?
Yes, and it's by what's his name? Bill Lawrence, who you know is the head writer on Scrubs, Spin City, and this and Ted Lasso back to back. He is taking over Apple, just like Taylor Sheridan's taking over Paramount.
Oh, crap! I'm gonna have to start subscribing to Apple again.
But Harrison is wonderful in it. Wendy Malick is also in there.
Oh wow!
Yeah, because that's the other funny thing too. You have these therapists needing to get their own therapy. That's how meta it is, and it's just like Jessica Williams.
Yeah,
she's dynamite on it as a former artist and who also works at the office, and it's just so funny seeing her just give Harrison Ford some shit once.
I've been watching like parts of that show, American Housewife.
Yes, Dietrich Bader.
And I gotta say, that show's hilarious, especially when you've got Barry Bostwick and Julia Duffy as.
Well, that's another show where the young daughter left and somebody else came in the later episodes.
Yeah,
and it was and the show died right after that.
Yeah, it was about 2 free seasons, but it wasn't bad. And there was an unofficial Drew Carey show reunion on there one episode where they had Ryan and Kathy Kinney and a few other guys.
Yeah,
and Drew Carey even showed up.
There you go. Hey, I saw the preview and I was like, that's funny.
I've been watching that, and I've been watching little parts. I want to see that show, The Middle, again, because that show was hilarious. It was fun, especially.
Yeah, that was the janitor from Scrubs, Patricia Heaton, and I forget who played the kids, but they were good.
The youngest one was hilarious, though. The one
I think it went on a little longer than it need to. Kind of,
he had a
family, but it was good.
Brick had a growth problem or something.
Kind of.
The actor did. I can't.
That's the other thing too. When in that weird time slot in the 2010s, that's when people are so surprised at what stuff flew under the radar. Is like, well, that's kind of when we began having the physical media wars. Should I get cable or should I get streaming possibilities? And then the economy kept changing. So I'm really not surprised at how much stuff just kind of flew under the bus. I was kind of that way with, you were talking Seinfeld earlier. I was kind of that way with Julia Louis-Dreyfus's other thing, Old Adventures of New Christine. Is like, that was another one. It's like, I would see parts of it. I'm like, this is really funny. It's generally in my neck of the woods. It's just, it was on at a bizarre hour. Just trying to escape high school. So I didn't see much of it.
I thought about like some shows that were like if you look at 1969 when that show came on, ABC was still, I think, the king of the networks at that time. All
the
crime shows.
Yeah, they were still doing
they were going through growing pains. Yeah,
and then we got to mix it in with like biblical stuff, like Touched by an Angel, and you're like, good grief.
No. This is 1969.
Yeah, you're talking way back. Okay,
way back. So
did they have the mod? Was the Mod Squad out by then?
Mod Squad was out, yeah, because that was ABC.
So that
ABC
began
had the Mod Squad.
That's a good show, but hey.
they were ABC was known as putting out a lot of like cutting edge stuff, but CBS was still,
and NBC was kind of just the go between. It's like you can have a variety show here, you'll have a sitcom here, and then a medical and a cop show.
And then what they did was a man came along one day named Fred Silverman.
Yes,
who began to change the face of the networks, and he worked for all three of them. And then one day he made a show called Super Train. And that show flopped terribly. And Super Train, and then he greenlighted Pink Lady and Jeff, and that did him in.
We'll return after these messages.
If you like small town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and booty debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
So, Brady Bunch, is it streaming anywhere? Is it on Paramount?
It's on Paramount Plus.
Okay, sweet. Hey.
But I did notice that for some reason there were some episodes that were missing.
I wonder why.
Would that be music rights, maybe?
I don't know.
Oh, my word. Whoa. Okay. So they were going to do a CBS reboot, but Cindy actress Susan Olsen had a documented hate speech.
Oh.
Yeah. And
doesn't surprise JJ.
Well, there's the politics you were talking about, JJ.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid it for as long as I could, but I didn't realize that was the case. Wow.
Right on the nose.
All right. Well, I'm going to move on. I don't.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to move on. I'm trying to keep it light, but yeah. So I don't know. Because that's a good question, because you do see that with certain sitcoms. It's like they'll have only certain episodes. It's like it does make me wonder, because I see that with other shows too, and it's like I guess those are the only ones that they want to syndicate, and the others have a little too many intense storylines or whatever. I don't know, but maybe they just wanted to order 10 episodes to syndicate versus 17. I don't know.
Well, they've done that with Barney Miller. I can't find all the episodes of Barney Miller on.
Really?
I haven't seen that in years.
They still show it on Get TV and Me TV and a few others, but
yeah,
I think you can get them all on DVD now, but coming soon, by the way. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know if that's a music right or if there's just not as big an interest, which is weird because it's pretty easy to syndicate and afford. So I would have to ask someone in sales and programming, probably. I don't know.
I've been watching the episode where they all got stoned on Wojo's brownies. Hey Barney, let's go down to the beach and shoot some clams. Barney, Your mother's from Killarney.
Yeah. For those who don't know, that is the episode Hash.
I saw Steve Landesberg shortly after the last ever episode. He did their junior college in town had the talk festival, and they'd get people like Robert Klein did it once, and he was talking to us about the fact. I think that's the first time I heard it wrapped. I think he actually told us it was the last.
Wow,
so, that was cool. That was fun. It was neat to see him.
I found out something about that show though. They would how most shows film like 8 hours. Like they'll do
right.
Danny Arnold was like still improving the script on those shows, so they'd be there till like maybe 2-3 o'clock in the morning, still shooting. So what they did was, instead of having the audience there, they would have the laugh track dubbed in. So all the scenes, some of the scenes would be sweetened with the live audience. Some of them would be pre-recorded.
That makes sense.
The thing I think that's one of those shows like the Brady Bunch. Great show, will live. And I know my uncle was a cop, and he said that Barney Miller was the closest to being a cop, with a real cop show than anything in the world,
And it was a show
he had that dry kind of atmosphere. He's like, you said what? You did what?
Yeah.
Here, let me take this to, the records.
It was more about the routine life that they have,
I mean, if you're at a desk, you literally are an engaging secretary taking calls all day, basically.
I remember the one where Fish had to retire and he didn't want to. That was pretty dramatic. No, I'm not. It was kind of sad.
No, that's true, because like that was back when they. But I think this is kind of what we're getting from other sitcoms. You see it now, and now it's second nature. But many of the ones in the 60s and 70s did kind of start the whole let's be completely comedic all the time, and then to end every season, let's have a very dramatic episode. And so it's just wild how that kind of became the norm.
Yeah, WKFC had a few of those.
Yeah, I remember the episode where Barney chewed out who was it? The older guy, the guy that James Gregory played.
That was Fish.
No, not Fish. No,
not
it was Inspector Luger. He chewed out Inspector Luger for interrogating he like hit the guy a couple times, and Luger's like, "Hey, Bond, that's how we get in the old days." He's like, "This is not how we do it today." He's like, "Okay, all right, just trying to get some information." And he's like, "Tell him, no, we don't do that anymore. That's not the way things are done anymore." But the one part I love is Luger. They arrest a Hasidic Jew for doing something, and the entire congregation comes, and he says, and they come and they just destroy the entire station.
Yeah,
and you see Luger come. It's like, well, what happened? He's like, I went out there with a megaphone, Barney. I told him to calm down. I told him to go home and take a shave.
And that's just it. Like, the comic timing was just so perfect there. And I think what we're also learning from all these sitcoms that we've been fortunate enough to cover so far is, and something that unfortunately you don't see too much today, and for better or worse, sometimes it works, sometimes it's annoying, but you see more over editing than you do seeing an actual scene kind of naturally ignite. You know what I mean?
And to me, it's the writing nowadays too, because a lot of these writers don't know how to write.
No, absolutely. I mean, you can improve a script as you go, but like now I'll see a show and it's like, I don't know if I want to dedicate. I don't know if it's working or not. I'm still iffy after 3 episodes. I get into scenarios like that, and shows like this, like, they're kind of easier to get into even now, I think, because the staging is just perfect. Where the character is in proportion to the laugh track audience off screen. You actually can still believe that they're in something resembling a house or station or even a ranch, and I mean, same thing that's kind of how I am with Andy Griffith. Like, it's like that it helped that they were both inside and outside, but I felt like they were doing everyday normal, town stuff instead of just, come on home or go out and fish, just.
Well, with like Andy Griffith, you had those sister shows like Mayberry RFD, or Pile.
Yes.
Solar Pile.
Yeah.
They all lived within this universe.
Yes, they did. Before Happy Days, that kind of started the whole TV cinematic verse. Yeah.
And then you
Well,
had like Beverly Hillbillies and
Petticoat Junction and
I
Green
totally
Acres.
forgot about
Green
that.
Acres. Yep.
The AGU.
Fun, the EGU. I love it. So fun fact.
So when you have a dramatic episode of a sitcom, you call it the Billy the Kid episode based on the Brady.
Yeah.
You could call it that. You could call it the Will finds his real dad episode.
Yeah.
But it's so funny you guys brought up Green Acres. I used to have a coworker who was still addicted to that. He's like, that's the only show I watch.
That was the most surreal of all those shows. It was
One time we messed with
kind of a
Siri.
crazy little show, you know.
It was a crazy show, but what was so funny is we were at my uncle's house and we're messing with Siri. And my dad, I kid you not, he screws with it. He's like, Siri, play the Green Acres theme. And it plays it word for word. I'm like, get out. Whoa.
And that was a show where they never got their house fixed.
They never got their house fixed.
They never got the house fixed.
There was always something to fix.
Yeah.
You are my wife. Goodbye, city life.
I think they played on that with they played on that with Murphy Brown because she had that painter that worked on her, or
the painter,
whoever he was working on.
He
her
had a budget
for the
to
longest time.
spend. I was disappointed when they brought back Murphy Brown. It just wasn't quite landing. The cast kind of seemed out of it.
All I'm going to say is my imitation of Pat Buttram on Green Acres. Well, Mr. Douglas, that's what you call a dearth burger. It's not a dearth burger. And then Hank Kimball. Well, yeah, you see, you got this thing here, and it goes in there, and then before you know, you got this part. No, let's look at this part here. Okay, that's the no, that's the other part I gotta watch. And there are all these characters. You were just like if you watch,
you're enamored by because they're showing again an abnormal kind of farm style life.
Everyone there was insane, but Mr. Douglas.
Yeah,
Mr. Douglas.
Yeah. Mr. Douglas.
Have you heard the Gilbert Gottfried episode with Dana Gould and Gilbert doing Barney Fife and
I think so.
Floyd the Barber doing a scene from It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh God, I've never heard that, but I gotta hear it now.
Terrific.
Look it up.
I think I put a link to it on Facebook at one point.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
It's really
put
funny.
it up, please. I
wonder if anyone's ever done that.
It's in the last 20 minutes of the episode. But
here's a question for you: has anyone ever done a parody of the Waltons?
Sure.
Yeah, Carol Burnett did called the Walnuts.
Oh.
And Vincent Price played the grandfather.
Had a gospel music parody record called Do It, Family. Oh. And near the end, they're going, "Good night, John Boy." Yeah, they're doing all that.
Not John Boy.
Yeah.
Now I can't think of any real older TV drama that still gets syndicated. I'll still see Fox affiliated shows something like Little House on the Prairie or In the Heat of the Night, but I don't really see them. Every once in a while, I would see in early morning hours, someone would be playing the Munsters.
Yeah,
there, but
you could watch here in New York. You could watch the Munsters on Channel 11 and the Addams Family on Channel 5, or I think it went the other way around. But I remember, like, in the morning, like if I was home from school or something, I would watch like the Munsters, Beverly Hillbillies, right?
Right.
To this day, I still don't get. I get it now.
I'm the same way. I'm not a big fan of that show for some reason.
I like
Munsters.
I love them.
Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Munsters I love
There's
because
two
of Al Lewis.
rednecks for you, buddy. No, I'm just kidding.
The Munsters I love because of Al Lewis. Because Al Lewis, like, yeah. Didn't get royalties on that show. Yeah. Put me and Fred Gwynn in a show together. Yeah, good. Yeah.
So
Officer Leo Schnauzer. Yeah.
Peter Griffin just invaded this conversation. What the hell?
No, that's how Al Lewis used to talk.
That's Grandpa, right?
That's Grandpa, yeah, Al Lewis. Because he would one time, me and my buddy, I think I told this one, me and my buddies were walking through Greenwich Village and I see this old guy like on the corner smoking this cigar outside a restaurant, and I'm looking, I'm like, that can't be. I'm like,
can't be.
I'm looking like, Can't be. Oh my God. I was like, it's Al fucking Lewis. It's Grandpa Mustard. I said, guys, I just saw Al Lewis smoking a cigar in the corner. Yeah, right, Jay. Right. I'm like, yeah, dude, it's him. And I remember he had that restaurant in the village, Grandpa's Villa Italiano or something like that. And it was like the worst Italian food you could eat in the world.
Oh, damn.
They just put his name on the front. He's like, yeah, my restaurant, yeah.
That's just how I am.
Shit, yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, mob joint, yeah. Try the veal, the best in the city. Pull toilet, pull chain toilet, yeah. Two guys get wet, I don't care, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a story that Billy West tells about. There's a story Billy West tells about this little, like, this family was at the restaurant, and this little girl came up and she goes to Al Lewis, where are you? He goes, 13 Mockingbird Lane, and she like ran away. He turns to someone, he goes, hey, women.
Women. Wow. So
Brady Bunch.
The Brady Bunch.
Brady Bunch.
For season 1 episode where Mrs. Brady sings in church, I think, or there was some
there was
issue that she couldn't sing or something, or I forget.
She couldn't. She had laryngitis. And she couldn't sing.
Yeah. Okay.
And all of a sudden she gets to church and she's like, she sings. Yeah. She sings in the church. Yeah.
Or did they do like on Mayberry when Jim Neighbors sang for Barney in the back to make it sound? Yeah, remember that?
Wow.
Can you sing a cappella? Acapella.
Yeah.
I can do my best.
They put him off mic or something, and it was actually Gomer singing for Barney.
You're just making me think of
actually, she did wind up singing in that episode, correct?
Yep.
Probably. So, Gil, you're thinking. What?
I was just saying, you were just making me think of those. I can't think of Gomer Pyle's real name right now. Jim Neighbors.
They're neighbors.
Yeah, I can remember seeing like the late night ads for his like music. Oh my God.
Oh Jesus.
Simpsons did a great parody of him too. They did a Gomer Pyle, like, hey, and then all of a sudden he breaks into song, right in the middle of the scene, he's he's got this real hickey voice and it's perfect.
Hey, Sergeant Carter, I never knew I could sing like that.
You gave me a mountain.
I don't care, Pyle. Go bullet at your ass.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's a Spotify playlist of them. My God.
There's a great moment in Forrest Gump when Gomer's on the TV and they're in the Army hospital and turn that shit off.
I'm trying to think.
Nothing to do with Vietnam. It was an Army show.
I'm trying to think the characters in that, the actors. Like, for example, I know Mike Brady, which I can't think of his name at the
moment.
Robert Reed. We've seen him in things like The Killer Shrews or something.
It's the other one.
The Wonder
Blood Island or something.
It's the one that's kind of like
Most Dangerous Game.
Yeah, kind of like
Bloodlust.
Yeah.
You're right. So it was Festus that was in The Killer Shrews.
Yeah, and the guy's got like humans and mummified in his. Yeah, it was a creepy one.
But what was it that?
It was gross AF.
What was it that Shirley Jones?
No. Florence Henderson.
Florence Henderson.
She was on the Today Show for a while.
Really?
And she was a singer, and not only that, she was in a song. She was in a movie about the guy who wrote Peer Gynt, called The Song of Norway.
Okay, before the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
And
the movie bombed. Yeah.
And the kids, were there any of them that had a career before Brady Bunch?
I know that.
Do you want them to?
Marcia, I know Marcia and Jan had a couple of like TV spots, like Gunsmoke or something like that.
Episodes or something, yeah.
I remember Barry Williams being on an episode of Mission Impossible.
Mm.
And I'm trying to think who the hell else was.
That guy.
The kid, no, the two other kids. I don't think they really.
That kid.
They did commercials and stuff like that. Because you got to realize, kids back then, they weren't like, they were doing commercials and stuff like that. Like here's the new rocket blaster by Whammo. And they get their $50, and then they get all the air blasters they can.
Hey, is it Coca-Cola?
And
the Johnny Bravo thing didn't.
I can't believe Johnny Bravo
his
came
potential
for this.
agent.
I did.
Claudia Jennings, Queen of the Bees.
Yeah,
B movies. Yeah,
and then the maid. She was
Ambi Davis.
Ambi Davis is always.
She was on the John Forsythe show. She'd done some stuff on television. She was also famous on I've Got a Secret, because what happened was that she's a twin. So they did one where she skated behind a piece of wood, and then she skated behind in different clothes. And what happened was that her and her twin sister were, in that, that was their big secret. But I can remember her being on some TV. She was on the Bob Cummings show too. Or Love That Bob, playing, I think, his secretary or something like that. She was one of those, she was like the Thelma Ritter type,
Wow.
Good actress, but I can remember
given the bimbo kind of role.
No, not the bimbo. No. Like always the girl
I'm
Friday.
trying to follow you, man. Come on, guide me.
No.
Guide me here. So secretary role or just one note characters?
Yeah, secretary role. Yeah.
Didn't Cindy and Bobby have an episode 2 where they were trying to break the teeter-totter record?
Yeah, I kind of remember
backyard,
that.
and they wound up going to sleep, and
Wow.
They
break the teeter-totter, you pieces of shit.
I don't remember them all, but the movie kind of hinted at, like, Bobby in one episode must have been a hall monitor.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
I think was there a ping pong thing too, or am I thinking of something else?
There was one where he.
Let's just say yes, so we can have it be true. I know
there was a teeter-totter. I think I'm confusing with the teeter-totter thing.
And Cindy
he thought he was like the hustler, and he was playing pool, and Jim Backus came over and hustled him. It was Mike's
nobody hustles me,
boss.
And then the Cindy had a part where she had to give up her doll or something. Her
kitty carrier doll. Yeah. Sorry, I just flipped it out Lewis for no apparent reason.
Only murders
kitty
in the
carrier.
building.
She should have had a Eddie Munster doll.
Only Murders in the Building I've been actually pretty blown away by this recent season, because they're going deeper into the well of making fun of recent Hollywood trends and everything.
I've still got to catch up on that. I haven't watched the season yet.
I'm not giving anything away, but at one point Martin Short does bring up, is like, what was the stupidest Bond girl name? And they bring up Holly Goodhead from Moonraker.
Yeah.
But it was just a funny skit.
I think there's one or two other contenders, but that's up there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's plenty. There's plenty to choose from. But I just thought there's
Pussy Galore.
Galore.
Yeah.
Well, no, that was a good name.
That was just sexy. But I know what you mean. Yes, it's like what? Huh? Yeah.
So we said Gene Hackman might have been Mr. Brady. How about recast it? How about Jack Nicholson?
Something, Carol.
Something, Carol.
For the movie, somebody was talking about Madonna being Mrs. Brady.
Oh God!
I could almost see that. I mean, she was great in League of Their Own,
Right? No, she works in some stuff, but I don't know if they would have been able to.
Jack Nicholson is Mr. Brady. You know something there, Alice? Every time I come home, we have the same goddamn meal every night. Can't you just cook something different once in a while? Like a meatloaf or a roast beef, maybe a goddamn turkey. But no, we got to have the same meal. And I don't know what it is, but it's put on the table. And you know something, Carol? Would it do you a little favor about having you greet me in nothing but saran wrap? Come home from a hard day at work, and I just want to bone you. But what do? You scoot away and go in the living room and sit there and read your Colliers. Maybe I want to get it on once in a while. Maybe I just want to get it on with you and show those kids how they came into the world.
I don't know if you're doing Christian Slater doing Jack Nicholson or if you're doing Mad
I don't know. You
TV's
can do
version
Christian
of
Slater and Jack Nicholson. It'd be the same goddamn thing, you know.
I know, or you're doing the Mad TV version of Jack Nicholson.
And I was just thinking of the Mike Brady in the movie, his job as an architect. Every one of his designs was his house.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
I don't even know why they make characters architects in movies. Like they do that with Charles Bronson in Death Wish, and he does very little architect. It's
I
like,
wonder if on Seinfeld, the
I'm
reason
gonna take that art skill and throw it at shit. Yeah, it's like if you're gonna give me a skill, it better pay off in the movie. It's like no, it doesn't have shit to do with anything.
Well, George on Seinfeld always talked about wanting to be an architect. I wonder if that was
right. It must have just been a thing in the New York art scene. And it's like, why? It doesn't mean anything cinematically.
I'm Paul Gersey. I'm an architect.
He's like, he's trying to sell a gas station design, and it's his house with gas station.
I'm going to carve Emmett. Yeah.
Just get out those sketches again. We'll use it all. Yeah, save some money. We'll use it.
Do it again, Sam. Play it again, Sam.
That's
like
the
thing too.
The Flintstones having a 20-mile long house, and it's the same window. Yeah,
it's the same damn window, and it's like I thought they broke it last episode. I guess it's fine? Question mark. And don't you like
be so dry, Mr. Brady? There was one where Peter got fired, and Mr. Brady goes, "Well, I've been fired before." Like it was
right.
Well, the backstory there. Why did you get fired? You know, but he was just like, "Oh, no big deal. I got fired."
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The question doesn't matter.
You're okay. I got fired.
Let's just say a copier was involved in a certain part of the anatomy.
Pants, yeah.
And let's just say he just said, "This reminds me of the boss every time I look at him." And
I love
to make one copy, but I hit 2 zeros and I made 100. And
I love how you're filling in the blanks of the backstory, and it's all off color.
And let's just say one time I took some mushrooms and walked in wearing a toga and thinking I was Julius Caesar. And, Greg, I need to tell you something. Whenever you do mushrooms, remember, beware of your surroundings. Why do you say that, Dad? Because one time I took magic mushrooms and I thought I was Jesus Christ. And I tried walking on water, and, well, it took the lifeguards 5 minutes to get me out. And then I sat up and I said, I have risen. So remember that, son.
Remember that, son.
Remember
James
that,
Cagney
son.
once told me I was king of the world, and I used to believe that. Oh.
Don't ever try to light your farts on fire, Peter, because one time I did it and I burned my asshole.
Tiger, was he in one episode or one season?
Yeah, they lost the dog, I think, in real life.
Yeah, I saw that.
Got hit by a car. They tried to replace him, but that dog didn't work out.
That was sad to read. Yeah.
But was it one season or one episode?
It was one. He was seen through, I think, 3 seasons. And then he's seen one episode of one season, and then the doghouse is just still there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And they touch on, like I said, they touch on in the movie. They touch on, they see the dog run through the wedding that they're having at the end of the second movie.
Yeah,
the dog runs through, and he goes, "Tiger!" And Tiger runs off screen, and he says, "Oh, Cousin Oliver!" And then you hear a car screeching like it just hit something.
Was that an inside joke? And it went over our heads?
That was the end of it. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember early on Marsha's first real date. I remember watching it when my dad goes, "What the hell is he doing with her?" He was this geeky looking guy.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
remember that? The first time she had a date. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that when she had the double date?
No, it was before that, or maybe it was the double date, and she had a. Yeah, he was a real awkward kid. I remember that was just.
Well, yeah, because he tied at the end of the scene with him. He ties his shoelace to the bench, and they get up to walk away, and he trips.
I just think maybe the actor at the time just had a little stage fright and just didn't pull it off very well or something. But, yeah.
No, he didn't have stage fright, Marcia. He had an erection.
Oh no, that's the movie. Okay.
No, the movie.
Wow.
Did you just remember take your raincoat? Remember to wear your raincoat. Yeah. Don't worry, Mr. Brady. I will.
Some TV critics saying that Cindy Brady was one of the strangest characters in TV history. She was kind of an odd little. She never grew.
Weren't they all?
She always had pigtails. You know, she never.
Yeah.
She always had the
didn't in
little
the
girl
later
thing. Maybe that was it. Yeah. It's a long. Until like the last episode, she was always like a little too little. You know.
But no, I remember the movie. Like Marsha's going off on the date with the bad guy, with the bad kid, and the mom is like, "So do you kids have protection?" You know, she's talking about raincoats and stuff like that. And he goes, he says, "Yes, I have assorted colors."
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
Or else I thought he was going to say he was packing heat or something. Yeah.
But then when she got like in the TV show, Marsha gets her nose busted or messed up, and immediately Nick Hammond is like sees the nose and he's like he gets out of going out on a date with her. And in the movie, she shows up with the nose and he goes, "It's not your," and the guy goes, "It's not your nose I was after anyway." So it's just the difference of the times.
That was, I think one of the 100 most TV Guide's 100 most memorable TV moments was Marsha getting hit by the football. You think about it, that was kind of rare at the time for something that bad to happen to a TV character. You know, break their nose on a sitcom. You know what I mean?
Do you remember Peter's? You remember Peter's date, the girl with the glasses, and then he wore glasses, or something like that, or he was. Yeah. The girl who played was the girl who was his date was Denise Nickerson from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate.
She got to be a real bitch when she started looking hot.
Yeah,
shy. I remember that one. Yeah.
Oh, she's one of the ones to take off the glasses, let down her hair, huh?
Yeah,
take off the glasses.
Like hitting every guy, hitting up on every guy or something. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Marsha helped her.
Get pretty.
Be pretty. Yeah, helped her be Marsha, basically. Yeah.
But no, it's funny too because like I said, they incorporated in the movie. They incorporated all these different episodes,
right?
Like the scene where she gets her nose smashed up, and she wakes up the next morning before the dance, and Jan in the movie is like really unhappy. She's having this great dream where Marsha's getting hit over and over again with the football. God. She wakes up and Marsha's nose is just fine, and she gets all very unhappy about it. But of course, that's a different episode in the Brady Bunch show, and Jan doesn't react to it that way. But I liked how they carried that into the movie, and that's how Jan reacted because that carried through the entire movie.
I love how Jan has evil voices in her head, and like at the end when they go visit Florence Henderson, she's like, "Oh, there's my little girl," and like you see Jan starting to have these things, and Florence Henderson goes, "Jan, snap the hell out of it, slap."
Yeah. And then she was just fine after that.
Yeah, just fine after that,
And then
Greg got his own room up in the attic.
Oh God,
they played that.
It lasted like one episode, I think,
but they played that up with him and Marsha having the same room in the movie, and that was
hilarious. That's when they made out.
That's where they start getting hot and bothered for each other. And
the ball.
The what?
The ball. That's from I think Harry Potter Puppet Pals, whatever.
Mike, why is the bed squeaking up in Greg's room? I don't know. Maybe he's just having a bad dream. Okay.
The kitchen was always a lot would happen in the kitchen on that show too. I remember.
Can I say that's the weirdest kitchen I've ever seen in my life? Because the stove didn't fit where the stove was.
On it much. Yeah.
It was all where people had their marks and camera work and all that.
Yeah.
You had to fit like 9 people in that spot.
Well, Seinfeld's kitchen was real sparse too.
And they were a middle class family, so you're just like, okay, who decided?
Middle class with a maid.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't rich, but that was back before we couldn't, I guess the average viewer could tell the difference.
Well, Ambi Davis wasn't Hazel, but she was good, because
they have an episode where they go to an amusement park, or am I thinking of something else?
Yeah.
Didn't they go to a zoo?
Well, what places did they visit? They visited Hawaii.
And That's what I'm asking.
Hawaii, the Grand Canyon.
The Grand Canyon, okay.
No zoo?
There'd always be a crisis whenever they went on vacation.
Yeah.
Something scary would happen. Yeah.
Cindy, Bobby, to be continued.
Somebody was going to drown in the ocean, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
Greg gets hit with the surfboard, I think, in the episode of the Hawaii episode.
The tiki episode, yeah.
That's where everybody's talking about all the bad luck with the little
amulet or something that was a curse.
Yeah, it's supposed to be cursed, but then Mike is like, no, there's no such thing, But what is it? Greg gets hit with the surfboard, and then Peter gets a spider on his chest.
Yeah.
I can't remember what.
And Bobby's kidnapped by a bunch of Hawaiian drug lords and made a drug mule.
That didn't.
That was that Clint Eastwood movie.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Wrong.
You're mixing it up.
Any which way you can Brady, coming soon. There you go. I love it.
But Vincent Price comes in and explains everything at the end or something. But first, they're afraid of him at first. I don't know.
Well, that's another thing too. I can't think of the actress's name, but she was in Designing Women in the movie.
Jean Smart.
Jean Smart, and she's all hot and bothered for all the Brady men.
Yeah,
she does that sometimes.
Who does she hook up with in the end?
I don't know.
Oh, Jean Smart is what's his name? Lenny from Lenny and Squiggy. Laverne and Shirley,
but in the end of the movie, she hooks up with somebody.
Does she? Because she was already married. I can't remember.
No, I think it was like when they do the ending and like you see
Oh, you're talking about the tic-tac-toe square and all that stuff.
Yeah, the tic-tac-toe square. I keep forgetting. Who does she get? I think Greg. I think she winds up with Greg.
Or standing next to him anyway, and kind of flirting with him. Yeah. And then the lesbian shows up.
That's
another thing. The guidance counselor was RuPaul.
Yep.
Oh my god. Before he was,
I gotta watch those again. They're really good.
Before he was a transphobic guy.
Bad appearance. Hi, friend. Hello, friend.
Well, yeah, and then he and RuPaul's character they show up at a swimming pool. There's some swimming pool stuff, and Greg and Marcia have some more of that sexual chemistry stuff going on there. He accidentally hits on Marcia from the back.
Marcia.
But also, RuPaul has daughters, apparently.
Yeah.
Imagine if there's someone making out with Marcia. Do they say her name that many times?
Well, they had the three. Oh. They had three black girls in there, and one of them's going, Moesha, Moesha, Moesha.
Yeah.
That was probably a reference to the sitcom at the time.
Oh, they were just making a comparison to how they're so much like the other girls.
I suck. I can't keep up.
What's the one where Greg had to babysit Bobby and took him to the drive-in when he had a
No. They lost a bet, so Greg had to be Bobby's slave.
Oh, okay.
So he had to take him around with him everywhere.
Yeah.
I didn't know the premise. Okay.
Wow.
But that doesn't involve a bunch of frogs or something.
The frogs are gonna turn us gay.
I don't know. I don't remember what it was. It was like a bet that he lost, and he says they did it on Family Guy. He goes, do you remember that episode? He's like, do you want me to? I'll do anything for you to do anything. He's like, do you remember that episode of the Brady Bunch where Bobby had to be Greg had to be Bobby's slave for 1 week? Yeah, that's gonna be on. Can you tape that for me?
Oh my god! Wow.
Oh, gentlemen, I gotta head out.
Did they do much with them in school?
Yeah, there were a couple of cool episodes.
Well, they catch Greg with a cigarette at school. I think.
Yeah,
and then Jan has the episode where she does something that gets attention. She gets a certain score that's higher than everybody else's. Then she finds out that they didn't do the score right, and she's not the highest scored person, and they got her up on stage.
And I think they did that on Married with Children too. Just everybody had to do some kind of test that they had to pass.
Well, that was the scene where Kelly has to get up and dance. She gets up and dances, and she's got everybody in the audience starting to get hot and bothered for each other because the dance is so hot.
Yeah. But I remember. Do you remember the one where Cindy's on the kids' TV show? and she's doing the quiz, and like the camera goes on her, she just completely goes blank.
Yeah.
She wants to be. She's like, I'm not having steak. Steak's fat, and I don't want to look fat on television. Like, she just forgets everything, and she's like, Cindy Brady, will you answer the question? And the camera goes on her, and she's like, like deer in the headlights kind of look.
Jeez.
I remember that.
Yeah, and then she had the thing about adjustments too. She had to make adjustments and
adjustments. Wow.
Yeah, she said something about she's having trouble at home. Had to make adjustments. Boy, I guess I've seen more than those. It's in there. It's in there. I remember instead of adjustments, she'd say adjustments in the school, and yeah. But anyway.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a jacked up